Welcome back to MVM. Today we have a preview. This one is for Cactus Town. This is a 2 to 3 player action programming game all about bandits, sheriffs, and the Old West.
And even bounty hunters.
Bounty hunters too.
If you want to play it 3 players. So this is a Kickstarter prototype, so just know that going into it. Make sure you guys check out the Kickstarter page for all the final components. All right, so we have a 2-player game set up, and the game can be played with basic locations or advanced locations. We have the advanced locations set up because they give you a little bit more flavor. There's actions that are going to happen when you move either your bandits or your sheriffs in those particular locations, but you can play it in a basic format as well.
Yeah, the basic format, the main difference is you've got these blue back cards and these red back cards. Whichever deck you're not using is going to be your target deck. But the basic buildings have none of those special abilities. It's more of a plain Jane sort of game.
And as we mentioned, the game can be played with 2 or 3 players. We have a 2-player game setup, meaning that one of us is going to be the bandits with our own set of objectives, and one of us is going to be the sheriff with their own set of objectives as well. However, no matter who you're playing in the game, you're always going to have 4 cards that are yours specifically, that are going to kind of be tailored around what your character can and cannot do in the game.
Yeah, and at the beginning of a 2-player game, the sheriff or the sheriff's deputies are all going to be in the center at the sheriff's office. That is going to be the card that is always in the center of this 5x5 grid. Then the bandit is going to choose 3 of the 4 corner locations, reveal those, and place one of their standees on each of those. Now, some of those cards in the advanced game might have some abilities, but you're not going to enact those during setup.
Yes, and what you're trying to do is each of these different players in the game is different. That is going to be done through the cards that you have, but also you're going to have one of these cards in front of you, which is going to list those actions if you're unsure of what they're going to do at any given time. So we'll start with the basic game here, being that it's a 2-player game and one of us has one objective and the other player has another objective. Now, I am playing the bandit, and my goal is to find very specific locations where money is located in the game and then run off the map, basically. And that's done by trying to find these locations through a set of cards. Now, I'm going to start with 4 of these location cards in my hand that are randomly dealt to me. Only one of these at the start of the game can match one of the starting locations I am on. But I'm going to know this information, and the sheriff player will not.
No, but the trick is both of us, while we're moving around the board by different means, are going to be revealing some of these cards. When we flip them over, Jeremy, the bandits in this case, are going to learn the location if it matches one of the cards in his hand, and then he's going to want to try to get there so he can plunder that treasure. As the sheriff, I'm trying to move my deputies around the board to effectively stop that. Now, when we meet, there'll be some duels. I might be able to take him prisoner, and that is my goal. While he's trying to get 2 of those plunders, if you will, off of the board, I'm trying to get 2 of his bandits in the jail.
Now, the way that the game works is through the asymmetry of the 4 cards that you have. Him and I both have 3 cards that are basically the exact same. They're running, they're sneaking, and then they're dueling. However, each of us has 1 card that is very specific to the role that we're playing in the game. But let's talk about those 3 basic actions first, because those are the most simple to explain. Then we'll explain how the game actually works.
Yeah, running is probably the most straightforward. When you use run, this is your basic type of movement. And when either of us use run, we're going to take 0 to 3 of our standees and move them 1 space. You can't take 1 standee and move it 3 spaces, but you can just take one of the standees. You don't have to move them all. So if in that case, if you're the sheriff, I would move here, here, and here. Now, if it was a run, I'm going to reveal each of those locations. So now Jeremy has that information. Now, when you flip those cards, that's where we're going to take a look at those special actions. Some of them may be on reveal, and when you reveal that card, you're going to do what it says. Some of them might be something where you enter and you're able to get some tokens like some ammunition, some reload tokens, various things that's going to let you sort of break and bend the rules. When that happens, you're going to put 2 of those tokens on there, and then in the future, when people enter that location, they're able to take one of those tokens.
Now, as David just mentioned, running is taking your character from one location to the next. However, you cannot break away from a character of the opposing side. So if David were to try to run from a location where I have a bandit, he can't. He's locked into that very specific position. There is another card called Sneak. This is going to allow you to move out of those positions. However, the difference is you are still moving each of your characters 1 space, but you're not revealing the location that you move into if it is face down.
Yeah, so as the bandits, as you can see, you might need to sneak away, but you have to be quiet, so you're not going to be able to learn the information on that next card. Whereas, as the bandits, you could look at the sheriffs to reveal some of those cards for you, all the while collecting information to try to get that loot.
The next card is Duel. Now, both of us have a duel card in our hand. Dueling is going to allow you to duel with another character that is on that same location as you. And dueling is simply done by rolling the die.
Yeah, both players are simply going to roll the die, and the highest die wins. Now, in the advanced game, there are a number of different tokens that are going to affect this. As you move around the board, as I mentioned earlier, there are some tokens, for instance, the bullet, the reload, and the peace pipe. If you've been able to acquire some of these, you can use them during any given duel, but you can only use one of them. The reload is going to let you, obviously, re-roll. The bullet is going to let you mitigate your die by giving it a +1 to the outcome, and the peace pipe is going to let you to basically ignore the duel altogether.
Now, the result of the duel is going to be whoever has the highest die, and it's going to depend on who the loser is. If you are the bandit and you lose a duel with a sheriff, you're simply going to take your standee and lay it on its side. Now, you do have an action that can stand that back up, but he's in prime position now to be arrested. Now, if you're the sheriff and you lose, something else happens.
Yeah, if the bandit happens to win the duel, that player is allowed to take the deputy marker and move it 3 spaces away from that location. Now, it doesn't have to be 3 spaces in a straight line. I could move it here, here, and here. Basically, getting that deputy as far away from the bandit as possible.
Now, we mentioned each of the other players has one special card in their hand. The bandit has, guess what? A bandit card. This is going to allow him to do the main action in the game that he's trying to do, and that is take money and put it underneath of his particular standee. He needs to do this twice in the game and escape the map. Now, this is how this works. Remember when I said that you're going to start with 4 hidden cards? These are the places that have money bags on them, but David doesn't know where these locations are. So if I'm on one of those locations with one of my characters, I can play the bandit and then take one of these money tokens and slide it underneath of that face-up character if he is standing up. He now has that, and my goal now is to remove him in the board from running. Now, the other action I can take is to actually recover my bandit that's been shot in a duel.
Yeah, the flip side of that is the sheriff card. The sheriff card is the card I'm going to play as the sheriff's deputies to do a number of different things. First and foremost is if I've knocked down one of his bandits and I'm in that same location and I've played the sheriff card, I'm allowed to take him into custody. I'm halfway to winning the game. All I have to do is do that twice to win the game. The other thing you can do with the sheriff card, if that's not an option obviously, is to do any one of the other basic actions, but only do it with one of your standees. So I could run, I could sneak, or I could duel with one of my standees.
So now that we've explained the objectives of each of the 2 base characters in the game, let's talk about how you actually play the game. And this is a little bit tricky because this has a sequence of chronological things that you're trying to do. Remember those 4 things we just talked about, those 4 actions? You're only going to use 3 of them each round, starting with the sheriff. That sheriff player is going to place one of those cards face down on the table. That is going to be the last action that he takes of the round because we're going to place all of our cards and then we're going to go through them in reverse turn order. So let's just show you how that would basically work. And we don't have to math it out here, but the sheriff would play a card, then I would play a card, and we go back and forth until each of us has 3 cards. Now we have to have thought about that in the right sequence because it's going to actually resolve the other way that you play them.
Yeah, this is where the action programming comes into play, and as you could tell from what Jeremy just said, it does get a little brain burny because of that reverse order. And it may not sound like it does, but I promise you, I've played this a few times now, and every time there's been at least one time during the game where I've put those cards down in the wrong order, and that's where some of the chaos with a game like this comes into play. But as we were saying, we're going to reveal these cards one at a time and do those actions as we explain them. So he'd reveal this, he dueled. There's no place to duel, so that basically, we move on to the next card, I would flip that, I'm running. That would allow me to run, and we so on and so forth until we get to that last card. And then you just keep doing that throughout the entire game.
So that programming is going to happen every single round, and that deduction will also happen. The chaos comes in trying to basically guess what your opponent's going to do and to outthink them. However, it gets even more chaotic and more fun when you introduce that 3rd player to the game.
Yeah, and before we talk about what the Bounty Hunters cards do, let's talk about what they're trying to do in the game. What they're trying to do is get one of those bandits and take them prisoner, as well as find 2 horses. Now, at the beginning of the game, they're going to have a location card that points out where they might find a horse, much like the loot or plunder that the bandits are looking for. They can go to that location to get a horse, and throughout the game, they might be able to identify other locations with horses as well, but they're trying to get 1 prisoner and 2 horses, and that's going to immediately win them the game.
And in order to do so, they have 4 cards of their own that are the actions that they'll be taking. They have 2 that are the exact same as the other players, and that is duel and run. However, 2 other actions are things that they'll have to use in order to meet their objectives. One of those is that bounty hunter card. Now there's a really cool synergy on how all these characters work together. As the sheriff captures these bandits, the bounty hunter actually wants to remove them from the jail and then capture himself. So as he lays them down, he has a bounty hunter ability that stands them back up.
Yeah, he can also even go to the sheriff's office and use one of his cards to actually free one of the prisoners that's already been put in jail. So he's going to be working a little against the bandits, but also against the sheriff's deputies as well.
And the final card that the bounty hunter has is the Horse Whisperer, and there's 3 actions that he can take. One of those is to steal a horse from a location, depending upon those 4 cards that he has. He can also take a new card or a new building card to try to find additional horses. And the final thing he can do is he actually can sneak. He doesn't have a card that can sneak inherently, but this Horse Whisperer card will allow him to sneak.
And you're going to keep playing rounds like that, putting that action programming deck together, resolving all of them until one of the players has reached their objective.
So that is Cactus Town from Second Gate Games. It is a really fun game which you are trying to deduce and make guessing games about what your opponent is going to do, and as you add that 3rd player, it just becomes more chaotic and more fun. Now, if you don't like games that have dice in them, there are some random outcomes that are going to come to play. However, you do have these tokens that are going to allow you to mitigate those dice rolls throughout the game as well. If you have any questions about the game, make them in the comments below. Subscribe to us. Follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and everything else that we do, and we'll catch you guys next time.
Bye-bye.